Hello, welcome back to TMS Volvo Commentary. Ben again. Last time we spoke, I was showing you around the lovely Volvo EX30 that had just been introduced. We've had lots of interest in the car, so thank you very much for calling and making inquiries about the vehicle, and that's going to continue going forwards. What I thought I'd do today is something slightly different compared to last time. Rather than focusing on just one vehicle at a time, I thought we'd do a kind of overview of some of the safety features built directly into the very core of the Volvo range of cars. So Volvo have always had a strong reputation for safety. But in terms of you as an end user of a car, what does safety actually mean in terms of how the cars are built, what systems are implemented to protect you, and what kind of impact does that have on how the cars are manufactured? So first things first, you can't see it, but underneath the skin of the car, there are a number of different materials used from the front to the back for different areas that might need more protection than others. So the first one, the main sort of cabin shell, which goes right from the A pillar all the way back, the B pillar, and then onto the C pillar, is made of a toughened material designed to be able to support the weight of the car in a rollover event. That would stop any kind of impediment on the cabin space in the event the car ends up on its roof or ends up flipping over. That's called the rollover protection system. They thought, towards the start of the 2000s, cars are going towards the SUV field, popularized by things like, the XC60 and so on. So they thought we need to make the cars more rigid so that they can survive those kind of rollover events. The other one is in the doors, you've got these diagonal strips of hardened boron steel, which comes directly from Sweden. That material is incredibly strong and is designed to basically stop any kind of object from impacting on the interior of the cabin space. But of course, in the event that something does manage to get through the incredibly tough material in the doors, the seats are mounted on something called the side impact protection system. So aside from the obvious rails that you can see right down here, which actually allow the seats to move for your comfort, the seats are actually on transverse rails that go the full width of the car itself. So in the event that something manages to make it into the cabin from the side, the seats will actually be shunted over out of the way of any kind of impact site. So really, really clever engineering there. And then of course, it would be remiss of me not to mention the humble seatbelt. Something that we all take for granted, as you can see there, since 1959, printed with absolute pride on the seatbelt itself. So since the invention of the 3-point seatbelt, it's estimated to have saved around about 1 million lives. And of course, that's because Volvo didn't patent it. They made it open for anyone to be able to use. And of course, that widely replaced the previous lap belt system, which was found to be not as effective as the 3-point harness that also keeps your chest from traveling forwards in the event of a crash. And then other use of materials. At the front and the rear of the car does require crumple zones. Crumple zones are there so that the car can absorb the energy of an impact rather than transferring it into the cabin space. So the car was made all over from this really tough material. Not only would it weigh a lot more, but also in the event of a crash, the car would just stop dead and all of that would get transferred into you and cause all sorts of nasty injuries, which we want to avoid, of course. So the front and rear bumpers are actually designed to be more malleable than the rest of the car's materials. They're mounted to the chassis of the car with incredibly strong mounts, but the material themselves, in terms of that sort of boomerang-shaped strip of material that forms the bumper, is actually quite malleable, so it absorbs that energy in the event of a collision. So that's just some of the things on the XC90. There are a lot more other features, but we're going to move on now to the XC40, and I'll run through some of the bits on this car as well. And to be honest with you, most of these features are universal across the range of Volvo cars, because of course, if it's a good idea on one car, it's likely going to be a good idea on another car as well. So one other really big feature is in 1998, Volvo introduced the side curtain airbag. So of course, you've had steering wheel airbag, passenger airbag for quite a long period of time, but the side curtain airbag, as soon as there's a detected impact, will form, protecting the passengers in the front and the back from hitting their heads on the sides of the car in the event that it gets shunted or rolls over in that kind of instance. So that's a really clever feature. Something else, I'm going to pop the bonnet open on this car just to show you. One other really useful feature, it's not something related to safety, but just as a kind of attention to detail thing, is on the XC40 and C40 and XC40 Recharge, when you pop the bonnet, you might be looking for the little handle that allows you to open the bonnet proper. Just follow the line through the Volvo badge, your hand will naturally rest right there, and that's where it is. Cool. So, on the left-hand side over here, it's kind of obscured by the cooling tank in this particular car, but all Volvos have them, is a very heavy mount and very sturdy mount for the actual engine itself. Now, of course, that keeps it in place during acceleration, stops the engine torquing and rocking backwards and forwards, but also in the event of a front-end collision where the absolute car has been just smashed all the way forwards like this, it's starting to impact on the engine, that will prevent the engine from travelling underneath and impacting on the footwell space in the car itself. So in that event, it will actually force the engine to travel upwards towards the bonnet, which of course isn't going to let the engine go anywhere, which means that in the event that the engine gets dislodged, it's not going to be travelling into the passenger space. So that's really good. Then you've got the IntelliSafe module at the front of the car. A lot of really useful features built into that, like your lane keeping aid, your automatic light sensor, and your rain sensor. But also, there's something built in there called the pre-collision system. Pre-collision system can detect if you're likely to be involved in a collision from either a car ahead that's stopping or oncoming traffic. Let's say you're on a two-lane road, somebody overtakes a lorry, they're coming straight towards you, the car will detect that and it can apply braking force to mitigate a collision or at least reduce its impact if it's going to happen. And then the other one is city safety, which gives the car a much bigger awareness of its surrounding area in terms of things like pedestrians and other vehicles. So one of them is the sensor in there that basically tells you if somebody was to suddenly walk in front of the car can detect that and automatically stop to avoid you hitting a person, which is again, really, really good. And then moving forwards onto the future, of course, the future is going to be electric. So no real need for heavy engine mounts anymore, but then it begs the question of what happens to the battery in the event of a crash. So much like the material engineering that goes into things like the XC90, you've got material engineering that goes into the actual batteries themselves, along with the ways the batteries are mounted to the cars. So they're designed to be extra reinforced, to basically form part of that reinforced shell that surrounds the entire cabin space of the car to prevent any kind of impediment on the battery itself. In terms of lifetime of the battery as well, a lot of people do wonder about longevity of the car. So one main thing to remember with Volvo batteries is that they are built to be modular, kind of a side tangent from the safety aspect, but in the event that there is a fault with any one part of the battery, that can actually be removed, replaced. When the car comes to the end of its life, parts of that battery would then be recycled to be put into new batteries for more BEV cars. So really good use of the recycling front there. And then with the EX30, of course, Volvo's smallest car now, whole new set of challenges, because of course with the smaller car, you've just got less physical space for there to be things like impact zones, crumple zones and things like that. But of course the same material engineering goes into that car as well. They still use the same mixture of really hard steel that goes on the outside of the car, and of course the front bumpers and other aspects which is designed to be more malleable for impact absorption. So that's just a quick overview of some of the main features of the safety to do with Volvos, but there are a lot more that I could be talking about. Volvo introduced the first rear-facing child seats in 1972, introduced the first booster seats with integrated seat belts in 1978. The list goes on. So if you want more information about that, you can actually just type in Volvo safety into Google. They've got a whole list of all of the systems and features they've introduced since 1959, and you can do a bit of reading and hopefully you'll learn something. We'll catch you soon. Take care.